guys, Charles here and welcome back to my channel. So today we're going to have a quick look at the harmony of St. Thomas by Sonny Rollins. Now St. Thomas is the opening track on Sonny Rollins' Saxophone Colossus album, which has recently become one of my favourite albums. The sophistication and simplicity of Sonny's playing on that particular record, real restrained playing. You know, Sonny can blow with the best of them, but he just plays really sensible call and response ideas where you can really get a sense of what he was thinking. I think that's a really useful thing, especially for newer players who are trying to get their ear tuned into the language of jazz. That's a great album to check out. So check out Sonny Rollins' Saxophone Colossus. Let's dive straight into the tune St. Thomas. So we're in the key of C. There are no sharps or flats in the key signature. Let's start by running through the chords, then we'll do a bit more of a deep dive harmonic analysis. We'll talk about maybe a couple of substitutions here and there, and the sorts of scales you would want to be playing. So we start with C major 7. Either there or there are both great. Straight into an F7. E minor 7, A7, D minor 7, G7, and C major 7 or C6. Then we do that again, exactly the same. Next up, E minor 7 flat 5. Or going to A7 flat 9. D minor 7 to G7, C major 7 again, C7 over E, so C7 in its first inversion, F major 7, F sharp diminished, C over G, G7, back to C major. So as you can see, pretty simple chords when we play them correctly. Let's go through and find our key centers and identify our go-to scales. So we know we're in the key of C, so our very first chord, C major 7. We'll just be playing C major. Next up, we've got an F7. Now, what we need to know about this particular tune is it's not a fast tune, but the harmonic rhythm is going by 2 chords per bar. Now, if you really want to, you can outline every single chord as it passes by. However, and I'll explain how to do that, but really what we're best off doing in a tune like this, and similar tunes, a tune like I Got Rhythm springs to mind, is to try and find a shared key center that can be used across all the chords. Now, I'll explain what I mean by that. So we've got an F7 chord here. So technically, the correct scale to play over the F7 would be an F mixolydian, which is B flat major. Next up, we've got an E minor 7. Well, E minor 7 is in the key of C, so we can keep playing C major. In an E way, what we call E Phrygian. Next up, an A7. Well, there isn't an A7 in C major. C major, of course, has C naturals in it, so A7 has a C sharp in it. So we could play either A mixolydian or the 5th mode of D melodic minor, A mixolydian flat 13. Going to D minor 7, which is in the key of C. So we're just playing C major over that. G7, which is in the key of C, so we'll just play mixolydian, which is still C major. And and back to C6 or C major 7 at the end, so staying on C. So you see within that line, and we repeat that line twice, remember, within that line we have two non-diatonic chords. Now a non-diatonic chord is a chord which uses notes from outside of our key center. Now our key center is C major, so anything that requires us to use a sharp or a flat we know must be non-diatonic. However, because the rest of the progression is all in C major and the chords are going by at a good lick, we don't really need to consider the fact that these are non-diatonic chords. We can just play C major over the top of all of it. Now, if you don't believe me on that, we can just simply look at what Sonny Rollins did with his melody. %, C major. So he plays that tune twice, and there's two non-diatonic chords going by there, an F7 and an A7. He doesn't care. He just plays his tune. It sounds great, so it's perfectly correct. Now, we'll talk about some alternative scales you could play in a moment, but let's just keep going through with the correct key centers. So we do that again, obviously. Now we're up to our E-7 flat 5. Now, anyone who knows me and has been watching my videos for a while knows that a -7 flat 5 chord is your telltale sign that you're in the harmonic minor scale. To verify it, we see whether it's followed by a 7 flat 9. And as we can see in this instance, E-7 flat 5, A7 flat 9. So this is a minor 2-5-1 going back to D. So for the E-7 flat 5, and the A7 flat 9, you're going to be playing D harmonic minor. When we get to that D chord, however, that D-7 chord, we're not going to carry on playing harmonic minor because D-7 is in the key of C major. And you can see here we've just got a 2-5-1 going back to C. Now in our bottom line here, we've got pretty much the same idea that we discussed for the first two lines, where there are some non-diatonic chords, but essentially it's just C major. So we've got C major 7, C7, so we can start to add that flat 7 in there, and we've technically resolved to that F major 7 chord. So for two chords we're technically in F major, so we've got C major 7, C7, we're going to be playing F major over it in a C way, which is our C mixolydian. F major chord, we're going to carry on playing F major. F sharp diminished. Well, a diminished chord functions as a dominant 7 chord. In this case, it's a D7 flat 9, taking us to the root of G for a nice resolution back into C major. So that bottom line, we've got C major, F major for 2 beats, F sharp diminished. Now you can play the diminished scale if you want, or you can play G harmonic major or G harmonic minor. So those are all of our correct key centers. Let's go back through and look at some substitutions we could put in, some slightly different chords to spice things up a little bit, and then we'll run through looking at the scales one more time to look for some more interesting colours that we can throw in there. So when we look at our first line again and we want to add a few substitutions, make it a bit more interesting, we can take our first chord of C, it's going to stay what it is. We need that home bass. Substitutions don't work great unless they've got a home to come back to. They only work in the context of sensible logic. So when we move from our C to our F, we, from the F onwards, can do a descending chromatic approach, which would sound like this. So that's a pretty interesting sound. Now, all we're doing there are tritone substitutions. I'll quickly break that down for you, but we've talked a lot about tritone substitutions on this channel. It's got C to F, then E minor 7. Instead of going to A7, we're going to go a tritone up from A7. Tritone meaning 3 whole tones or 3 whole steps. So A to B would be 1, B to C sharp would be 2, C sharp to D sharp or E flat would be our tritone. So instead of playing A7, we can play E flat 7, which instead of playing up there, I'm doing it on the 6th fret. So we can have same on the G7. The G7 becomes D flat 7, resolving to C. So that first progression becomes this: 2, 3, 4. Which is a little bit more interesting. Now, you can take exactly the same approach with your scale playing. So this gives us some pretty cool sounds. We'll come back to those in a moment. Let's just keep going with the harmony. E minor 7 flat 5 in line 3 to A7 flat 9. Well, we can do the same. We could use a tritone substitution. So that entire line can be substituted. To again get us back to C. So just to give you the chord names there: E minor 7 flat 5, E flat 7, which I'm adding a sharp 11, D minor 7, D flat 7, sharp 11. I'm adding a sharp 11 because generally tritone substitutions have a sharp 11 in them. It just is a cool sound, an expected sound. The sharp 11 is the root of what the chord would have been. So I've got my E minor 7 flat 5, E7 sharp 11. The sharp 11 is the note A. Well, I should have been playing an A7 chord, so the sharp 11 is just adding the note you would have been playing. It makes it feel more correct. Same D flat 7 sharp 11. The sharp 11 is a G. The root was supposed to be a G. Cool. Now another approach that we can take for the minor section here is to just add a passing chord. We can go E minor 7 flat 5, B flat 7 sharp 11 to our A7. So we're going to have... And the same here on the D minor 7. D minor 7, A flat 7 sharp 11 to our G7. So we're going to have this. Which, again, I think is a pretty cool sound. So finally, let's go back through one last time and talk about some alternative scales that we can play. For this first passage, we've got this idea of a tritone substitution. So we could play a tritone substitution with our arpeggios. We could have... something like that. That's me outlining the arpeggios themselves. However, probably my go-to for most of this tune would be blues sounds. Now, not literally the blues scale, but just C7 sounds. So all I'm doing there is I'm kind of playing my minor pentatonic blues scale, but adding major thirds in there, either with bends or literally just playing them. This This is kind of the scale they play in country all the time. So that's going to fit over most of this tune. So any chord which is a tiny bit non-diatonic, because we're playing loosely with the concept of C major anyway, by making it bluesier sounding, it's just going to lock really, really nicely. So yes, we can play arpeggiatically and try and really outline the harmony, but the tune doesn't really want that. It's it's a pretty rootsy tune, this one, and so we can get away with some pretty rootsy playing. Now, when we get to line 3, minor 7 flat 5, A7 flat 9, we can use our diminished scale, and actually we can use any of the concepts we talked about in our family of 4 video that I recently did, Spice Up Your 251, so you can check that out up here. And I explained why we can get away with all these different 7 chords. So in this instance, we're on an A7, so we can also play C7, E flat 7 and F sharp 7, and they're related 2 chords. Now, at first, that seems overwhelming and confusing. It doesn't really make any sense. So do check out that video where I go through it step by step and explain that. But what we're essentially doing by swapping between these different 7 chords is outlining different alterations and different degrees of the diminished scale. Now, again, if you have seen that Spice Up Your 251 video, but you're not very confident with your diminished scale, I did do a video outlining how to learn your diminished scale. So again, I'll put a link up here where you can check the diminished scale out. But that would work nicely over. We can have. So diminished scale works really nicely there. I think that's about it. I think I've covered everything I wanted to discuss there. So I'll just finish by playing one head of this by myself. Leave any comments or queries down below. I deliberately kept this one a bit looser than I did my previous video. When I did Just Friends, I got complaints. I was trying to keep it really short and concise, and people didn't enjoy it anywhere near as much. I feel that these longer ones are perhaps a bit longer than they need to be, but people seem to respond better to them. So let me know what you think down in the comments below. Please do click that like button, subscribe, ding the notification bell, and share with any of your friends. And as always, I very much look forward to seeing you in the next one. I hope you're getting plenty of practice in, and I'll see you then. Cheers.
Forget a drip, drip, you're drowning in debt now. You can't buy your way out, and I heard you find it difficult to